Soaking up the pre-match atmosphere here as we wait for things to get started. Won't be long now before we get through the formalities. A warm welcome, one and all. I'm Peter Drury, and seated in the experts' hot seat is our man Jim Beglin.
Glad to be here, Peter, and I'm ready to rumble.
Hey everybody, this is Peter Sheet, and what you're watching right now is Pro Evolution Soccer LITE 2018, the LITE version, which is a free game. And I think what I mean by the free, it's not exactly a free game, but it kind of is. Okay, so the game is entirely stripped down of any single player content, and what they've given you here is the online creator team, my team, fantasy football, basically, because that is a money spinner. So the in-game currency is some kind of, well, C for currency, and also stars. You gain C currency from winning games, or you get some kind of monetary gain regardless of the result at the end of the game.
Decent progress down the left. He's left his man. That's a throw.
Yeah, stars are rewarded as a daily play incentive, along with player stamina recovery, which is also quite useful, and some money as well. It's like every day you log in, you get like 30 stars or 1500 in-game currency, or 12 player stamina refreshes. So yeah, you get the stars every 3 days, and I think that counter ticks up to like 9 days.
Contract is concerned.
The speculation is to be expected, Peter, but it doesn't help.
The in-game player contract. Now this seems to be where the money is going to be made. Your players that you choose, their contract with you only lasts for 10 games, so you have to renew their contract every 10 games that they play. There are ways of extending that by keeping them as part of your reserve squad. So it is useful to have a couple of star players in reserve that aren't actually taking up any weekly money within the game. Your managers, however, within the game, you also have to sign your manager to a contract. The manager contracts are 25 games long. However, they're probably twice as expensive as a sort of top player. Your top players are around 2 to 3.5k for the 10-week contract.
There's a lot of movement going on. There's no shortage of options.
So I guess they're looking to play around their opponents as opposed to through them. Goes for goal!
The rewards for winning games are, well, you get 2k for a win, 1k for a draw, 600 for a loss, plus there's a multiplier of some description, dependent on how the game thinks, how strong the game thinks your team is. So you can have a team strength multiplier, although it doesn't seem to have much rhyme or reason as to what its criteria is. So as you start the game, the idea is to create a online team, sort of fantasy football style, of the best players that you can get.
That's not going to make it.
that team will then be used in a variety of ways. So obviously you control that team, you can play against the CPU. Those games are played against teams that are made up of the field of other players who have made similar level teams, which is an interesting concept, and I quite like it. It's good to see how other people have built their teams in comparison to mine, which is very interesting. And of course, the team that I put together is also put in that pool.
And it's been taken straight back.
And when other players are playing against the computer, then that will occasionally pull my team out of the hat and use it and its players and tactics as I've set up against people in the real world, which is very interesting. Then it'll give you, occasionally when you log in, it'll give you results of those games that have occurred. Yeah, exactly like that there. You can see there that I've played, I think it shows I've played 10 games, X amount of wins and losses, and it gives me a monetary, again, you get a meagre amount of money for these wins, losses and draws. So as I say, when you start the game, you're building your team. At a low level, the opponents are average, the players are cheap. It's relatively easy to get by and manage the team as it goes. However, quite soon, as you get better, the game also ramps up. As you win more games, the opponents ramp up in level. So you get tougher opponents. They're more difficult to beat. Obviously, more difficult to gain money from. The players are much more expensive. As I said, your top players, your gold level players are 2 to 3.5k. Well, I'd say the gold level players are 2 to 3.5k, and then there's black level players above that. They're your Messi's, Ibrahimovic's, and also classic legendary players such as Maradona and David Beckham.
But they also need an alternative.
Interesting half, just missing goals, so don't be surprised if the second half brings a change to the scoreline at the break, 0-0. The action has already resumed here. No score in the first half, who's ready to go for it now?
So as your game continues, it's more important to win, so you're able to retain the players that you want to keep your team at a level good enough to challenge people out on the out in the cloud, as it were.
Tries a through ball. It's Dzeko! He's done very well to get to that.
So that's just playing against the CPU, and you can watch. You can also set up simulated matches, watching your team play against one of these cloud-based squads, which is also, again, it is quite interesting. I think I'm actually better at that than any of the other versions of the game, I think. In fact, I'm level. I think I'm rank 30,000 in the world out of 100,000. So essentially, that's, you know, I'm better than 70% of the gaming population in the sim version of this. What you're watching here, however, is the online player versus player version. You can see I am actually playing a real player here, which is why it's an incredibly boring stalemate. He's considerably better than me, so it was a challenge just to keep him at bay, really.
Passes it through. It'll be a throw-in. Yeah,
so the interesting thing about playing other players is that this is when you realise that other people, rather than building their team at a normal level, or a normal sort of progression.
Yes, the referee's given it.
Seems like a whole bunch of people have gone out and spent a whole bunch of money on getting real good players. I cannot count the amount of times that I've played against a team that had Diego Maradona and Zlatan Ibrahimovic up front. Bit of a killer combination, although Maradona's a short arse, so easy to then defend against the headers.
The pass he's looking for. Speculative strike. Big relief, it just needed better contact.
Birkenhead are looking quite mean on the counter.
I mean, people are chucking a lot of money at this game, and I would suggest that even the people who have bought the full price game at £60, or I guess $80 to $100, even those people have paid extra money on top to have these star players. I mean, I dread to think how much people are spending on these games. It's really no wonder that the companies like Take-Two Interactive have decided to do what they're doing with Grand Theft Auto, and also the Star Wars game. EA, there was a whole big kerfuffle online about their loot crates recently. But really, it's the people who play FIFA and Pro Evolution, Madden's as well, I would suggest, is probably the same. Is the basketball one the same? Is the NHL game the same? Do you have to pay extra money to play online and have good players?
Look, this can still go either way. It might be flowing one way, but there's still time for some ebb.
The interesting thing about playing online as well is obviously you see teams with good players. As you can see, there's his squad in comparison to mine. You will get a little bit of player envy. You think, hey, hang on, I'd quite like Lionel Messi in my squad. That'd be awesome, man. Of course, you can pay £1.98 or 10,000 in-game credits to have a 4% chance of getting Lionel Messi or a similar top-level player. But of course, you're only buying an opportunity to buy to get them players. You've got a 4% chance to get them black players, then an 18% chance to get a next step down gold player. The rest of the 76 or 78% on top of that are the silver level. Still good, but only really average level players. Stats coming in around like 76, 78 out of 100. Whereas your Ronaldo is a 96 level striker. So yeah, there you go. That's pretty much the long and short of it. It's a free game, and you can play it as frugally as you want, but it seems like people are channeling a whole bunch of money into this stuff. Again, it's a good game. The football's good. I haven't played a football game since FIFA 98, which was the France World Cup version. I had Blur Song 2 as the theme tune, which was interesting. But that's the last time I played an actual football game, so quite nice to get back into something like this and be playing for a while. And of course, playing online is a little bit addictive. You want to beat people in the real world. And of course, there's interesting little things about the game. When you set up your team, you can set it up from your actual hometown. So my team here is Birkenhead, even though I'm not exactly from Birkenhead. Birkenhead's like 2 miles away from where I grew up, but close enough. And of course, you get the added interest of the game plays with your team while you're not playing the game, which is super interesting to me. I always like things like that. So yeah, overall, it's quite a fun little game.
Played in by Azpilicueta, up for the header. He's delivered.
And there's my win.
And the chances of winning a game that may have gotten away from you are always greater with characters like this player. A strong personality that has more than likely secured another big win.
So I would suggest if you're gonna play this game, don't go too mad. Try and play it conservatively. No real reason to go out and chuck a load of money at this game, because you could play the one player, Liverpool versus Barcelona, repeatedly over and over again for your heart's content. But there's nothing like scoring a header in the dying moments against some online douchebag. Alright, so this has been Pete the Sheet. Thanks very much. I'll see you soon.